When it comes to connection, attraction, and building something real, confidence will always be the magnetic force that outshines any number, whether it's your age, his age, or the years between you. Confidence is the energy that speaks before you even open your mouth. It's the quiet assurance in your body language, the way you carry yourself into a room, and the way you speak without the need to be validated every 5 seconds. When you bring confidence into a relationship, you instantly change the dynamic because you're not there to convince someone of your worth, you're there to share it with them. When you are older than the man you're dating, the most dangerous trap you can fall into is assuming that youth is the only currency that matters. That belief will quietly erode your self-esteem, making you act from a place of insecurity instead of grounded assurance. You don't need to compete with younger women, you don't need to prove you can keep up, and you certainly don't need to mold yourself into someone you think you'll prefer. Confidence is not about pretending to be perfect, it's about being deeply comfortable with who you are, flaws and all, and knowing those imperfections are part of your unique appeal. True confidence has a way of removing pressure from the relationship. You're not constantly asking, am I enough? Or will he lose interest? Instead, you're asking, is this connection good for me? Does this add value to my life? That shift in perspective changes everything, because when you stop auditioning for someone's approval, you create space for genuine attraction to grow. You give the other person the chance to see your depth, your humor, your insight, your passions, all the things that have been shaped and refined through the experiences you've lived. Confidence is also contagious. When you stand in your own power, you invite the other person to stand in theirs. A younger man in a relationship with an older woman is often drawn to her because she knows herself in a way that younger partners may not. She's not guessing at her worth, she's living it. She's not chasing the latest trend to feel relevant. She's rooted in her own style, her own rhythm, her own sense of purpose. That kind of grounded energy can be intoxicating because it's rare and rarity is always attractive. But confidence isn't loud. It's not about dominating every conversation or constantly talking about your accomplishments. Real confidence is quiet and steady. It's in the way you can listen without feeling threatened. It's in the way you can give someone freedom without fearing they'll run. It's in the way you can let a moment breathe without rushing to fill the silence. That kind of presence says, I am enough, and I don't need to prove it to you every second. It's important to remember that confidence doesn't mean never having doubt. Everyone has moments where insecurities creep in, especially when navigating an age gap relationship where societal perceptions can add pressure. The difference is that a confident person notices those thoughts but doesn't let them dictate behavior. Instead of panicking when you feel a flicker of insecurity, you pause, breathe, and remind yourself of your value. You make decisions from a place of self-respect, not fear. If you rely solely on physical youth to feel attractive, you'll always feel like you're in competition with time. But when your value comes from your mindset, your life experiences, and your emotional availability, age stops being a disadvantage and starts becoming part of your unique charm. Younger men who are genuinely interested in older women often seek exactly that, a level of self-awareness and emotional stability they can't find elsewhere. If you hide that under layers of trying to act younger, you strip away the very qualities that drew him to you in the first place. Confidence also allows you to set the tone for the relationship. Instead of anxiously waiting for him to decide where things are going, you communicate openly about your expectations. You're not afraid to say, this is what I'm looking for, and you're equally unafraid to walk away if the answers you get don't align. That kind of self-assurance doesn't push people away, it makes the right ones respect you more. Because people can feel when you're in the relationship because you want to be, not because you need to be. In moments when you feel the urge to compare yourself to younger women, shift your focus to the things only you can offer, your perspective, your resilience, your ability to handle challenges with grace, your understanding of what truly matters in love. These aren't qualities you can fake, they're earned over years of living and learning. They're what make you captivating in a way that transcends surface-level attraction. And when you embody that confidence fully, you naturally attract people who value it. You stop trying to win over those who are more impressed by age than substance. You stop bending yourself into shapes that feel unnatural just to hold someone's interest. You start realizing that your worth was never about fitting into a certain box. It was about standing unapologetically outside of it. When you're dating someone younger, it's tempting to believe you need to constantly match their energy, follow their lifestyle, or even mold yourself into the same pace they live at. You might think, if I can show him I can keep up, he won't see the age difference as a problem. But here's the truth, trying too hard to keep up with someone else's rhythm almost always backfires, because it's not grounded in authenticity. Instead of being admired for who you are, you risk becoming someone you think they want, which can actually erode the very qualities that made them attracted to you in the first place. Overcompensating often starts subtly. You find yourself saying yes to late night events, even though you know you'd rather spend that time differently. You start wearing clothes that don't really feel like you just to fit into a style that seems more aligned with their social circle. You even laugh at jokes you don't truly find funny or pretend to share interests you never actually cared about. At first you convince yourself it's harmless compromise, but what's really happening is you're slowly abandoning parts of yourself for the sake of being more appealing. The irony is the very reason someone was drawn to you, your self-assuredness, your stability, your sense of identity starts to weaken. A younger partner isn't attracted to you because you can mimic their friends or adopt their slang. They're drawn to the grounded magnetic energy that comes from someone who is comfortable in their own skin. When you trade that in to keep up, you lose the effortless allure that comes from authenticity. There's also an emotional risk here. Overcompensation can create an uneven power dynamic. When you're working so hard to adapt, you put the other person in the position of being the one who sets the pace, the trends, and even the tone of the relation. They become the standard you're chasing, and that can lead to subtle shifts where your voice is heard less and their preferences dominate. Over time, this dynamic erodes mutual respect because relationships thrive on balance, not one person constantly adjusting to the other's world. It's important to remember that attraction isn't about sameness, it's about polarity. The spark comes from differences as much as similarities. Your life experience, your pace, your perspective are part of what makes you intriguing. If you're always running to match their steps, you're erasing the very contrast that can make the relationship exciting. A younger partner doesn't need you to be their mirror, they need you to be their anchor. Matching lifestyles can also become exhausting. You can maintain a pace that's not natural to you for a while, but eventually it wears you down. You start feeling drained, irritable, or even resentful, and that's when cracks start appearing. The connection begins to feel more like work than joy, because deep down you know you're playing a role instead of showing up as yourself. There's another layer. When you overcompensate, you inadvertently communicate that you believe your natural self isn't enough. This plants a seed of insecurity in the relationship. Even if you never say it outright, your actions tell the other person, I need to change to keep your interest. And when someone senses that you don't fully believe in your own value, it's harder for them to keep seeing you as the high-value partner they were initially drawn to. The truth is, people of any age are attracted to authenticity. When you walk into a room and carry yourself with confidence, not the loud, performative kind, but the calm assurance of knowing who you are, it's magnetic. That doesn't mean refusing to try new things or being unwilling to adapt, but it means doing so from a place of genuine interest, not fear of losing someone. There's a big difference between exploring their world because you're curious and reshaping your life because you feel you must. One of the most attractive qualities you can bring to a relationship is the ability to lead in your own way. You don't have to match their energy, you can invite them into your rhythm. You can show them the depth, richness, and pace of your own life, and that difference can actually be exciting for them. If they truly value you, they'll want to experience your world just as much as you experience theirs. Ultimately, keeping up is a mindset trap. The goal isn't to erase the age gap, it's to make it irrelevant, and you do that by staying rooted in your identity, owning your preferences, and allowing the relationship to exist in a space where both people bring their unique strengths to the table. When you do that, you create a connection that isn't about one person leading while the other follows, but about two people walking side by side, each fully themselves. If you want, I can now expand keynote 3 from this same speech in the same style so the whole series stays consistent. When you enter a relationship where there's an age difference, especially when you're the older one, it's easy to unconsciously loosen your boundaries because you feel grateful that someone younger is showing interest. That gratitude can quickly turn into a subtle willingness to overlook things you normally wouldn't accept. You might let small disrespect slide, tolerating consistent behavior, or accept a level of communication that's beneath your standards, all in the name of keeping the connection alive. The problem is, the moment you begin to compromise on your boundaries, you're not only reshaping the relationship dynamic, you're also reshaping how they see you. Boundaries are not there to scare someone off, they are there to let the right people know exactly how to treat you. Think about it. Boundaries are not walls. They are guidelines for how a person can be in your life without overstepping what matters to you. If you've built a life full of experiences, lessons, and personal growth, you already know what feels right and what feels wrong. Age shouldn't change that. In fact, your life experience gives you a clearer lens for recognizing when someone's behavior doesn't align with your value. But if you ignore that inner voice just to keep the attention of a younger man, you risk losing the very thing that makes you powerful, your ability to walk away when something isn't right. Boundaries are also about self-respect. If you accept being treated in a way you don't like, you're essentially teaching the other person how far they can push without consequences. A younger man who truly respects you will value your boundaries, not test them at every turn. But if you keep adjusting your standards to make the relationship easier for him, you're sending a silent message. My comfort and dignity are negotiable. Once you give someone that message, it's hard to reverse it. They begin to see your flexibility not as kindness but as weakness. There's also the psychological effect of boundaries on attraction. Confidence is magnetic, and part of confidence is knowing when to say no. When you clearly express your needs and limits, you create an environment where respect naturally grows. If a younger man feels that you stand firm in your values, he's more likely to rise to meet them. But if you bend every time he pushes, he learns he doesn't have to put in much effort to keep you around. That's when attraction fades. Not because of your age, but because of the absence of challenge and respect. Boundaries don't have to be confrontational, they can be communicated calmly and with warmth. It's not about punishing someone for crossing a line, it's about explaining the line before it's crossed. For example, if consistency in communication is important to you, let that be known early on. If you value honesty, make it clear that you expect it. And when those expectations aren't met, address it directly instead of brushing it off. These conversations aren't about controlling the other person, they're about protecting your own well-being. Many women in age gap relationships fall into the trap of thinking if I push too hard, he'll leave. But here's the reality, if someone leaves because you have standards, they were never going to give you the relationship you wanted in the first place. Boundaries don't scare away the right person, they filter out the wrong one. And that's a good thing. You don't want someone who's only interested in you when you're easy to please and never challenge them. You want someone who respects you enough to meet your needs while also feeling comfortable expressing theirs. Another danger of letting boundaries slip is the slow erosion of self-esteem. Each time you say yes when you want to say no, or ignore something that bothers you, a part of you feels smaller. Over time, you start doubting your worth because you've been acting in ways that don't align with your true self. That's when resentment builds, not just toward the other person, but toward yourself. And resentment is poison to attraction. The relationship might still look fine on the surface, but underneath, your frustration grows until it's impossible to ignore. Having strong boundaries also keeps the relationship balanced. Age differences can sometimes create a subtle power dynamic, where the younger partner feels more in control, simply because they hold the youth advantage. But boundaries even out that dynamic. They remind both people that the relationship is a partnership, not a hierarchy. You're not there to parent or please him, you're there to build something mutually fulfilling. Some people mistake boundaries for ultimatums, but they're not the same. An ultimatum is about controlling the other person, do this or else. A boundary is about controlling your own actions. If this happens, here's how I will respond. This shift in perspective is powerful because it puts the responsibility for your happiness back where it belongs, with you. You can't force someone to treat you well, but you can decide what you will and won't tolerate. It's worth remembering that a younger man who is genuinely interested in a serious, respectful relationship will actually appreciate your boundaries. They make him feel safe in the sense that he knows exactly what's expected and where the limits are. That clarity can be comforting and attractive because it shows you have a strong sense of self. It signals that you're not desperate for approval, and that makes you even more appealing. Ultimately, boundaries are not a barrier to love, they are the framework that holds it together. Without them, attraction may spark, but it won't last. With them, you create a relationship that can grow stronger over time, regardless of age difference. When you honor your standards, you invite a partner to meet you at your level, rather than pulling you down to theirs. And that's when a connection has the best chance of not only lasting, but thriving. When you're in a relationship where there's an age gap, it can be easy to get swept up in the chemistry and forget that what really holds two people together over the long term is shared value. Chemistry is intoxicating. It's exciting, it's addictive, and in the early stages, it feels like it's enough to carry the relationship forward. But over time, attraction without alignment becomes like a car without a steering wheel. It might move fast, but it's headed nowhere with purpose. You have to look beyond the immediate spark and ask the deeper questions. Do we want the same kind of life? Are we building towards similar visions of the future? Do our lifestyles support one another rather than conflict? It's not just about whether you can have fun together on a Friday night. It's about whether you can navigate a Tuesday afternoon crisis together, or make decisions about where to live, how to spend your money, and how to handle conflict without pulling in opposite directions. Shared values create a foundation where both people can feel safe and understood. Without them, even the most passionate connections start to crack under the weight of real-life challenges. Sometimes the gap in values isn't about age at all, it's about life stage. A younger man may still be in exploration mode, testing careers, experimenting with his lifestyle, figuring out his identity. You might already know who you are, what you stand for, and what you want. That's not a judgment, it's just a different place in the journey. If one person is craving stability and the other is craving adventure, you're going to feel that friction, no matter how strong the attraction is. This is where being honest with yourself becomes critical. It's tempting to ignore these differences when everything feels exciting and you don't want to break the momentum. But attraction without shared vision can lead to deep frustration later on. You can only pretend for so long that you're okay with a misaligned lifestyle before it begins to wear you down. The most powerful thing you can do is to have those uncomfortable conversations early. Talk about what matters to you, not in a way that demands he matches you on every point, but in a way that makes it clear what's non-negotiable for you. If family, career ambition, financial stability, or personal growth are important to you, be upfront about it. See how he responds. Not everyone will align with you, and that's not a failure, it's a filter. Shared values aren't just about morals or ethics. They're also about pace and priorities. Do you both value time together, or is one person more independent while the other craves constant closeness? Do you both treat relationships as a priority, or is one person putting it second to career or social life? These things may seem small, but over time mismatched priorities erode trust and connection. Even in an age gap relationship, shared values give you something solid to hold on to. They mean that when life gets messy, as it inevitably does, you're not working against each other, but with each other. You're approaching problems with the same fundamental principles, which makes solutions come faster and with less resentment. On the flip side, if the only thing holding you together is chemistry, you'll notice that every conflict feels bigger than it needs to be. There's no underlying agreement about how to navigate challenges, so each disagreement turns into a tug of war about whose way is right. And often that tug of war isn't really about the issue at hand, it's about the bigger truth that you're trying to live two different lives together. The beautiful thing is that shared values can deepen attraction, not replace it. When you find someone whose vision of life complements your own, the connection doesn't just stay exciting, it grows richer over time. You start to feel not just drawn to them physically, but inspired by them, aligned with them, proud to be building something alongside them. And that's the kind of connection that can handle the tests of time, age, and change. When you shift your focus from purely the spark to the shared vision, you're no longer just hoping for love to work out, you're creating the conditions for it to thrive. Chemistry is what lights the fire, but shared values are what keep it burning when the wind picks up. And when you have both, the age difference becomes just a number, not an obstacle. In any relationship, especially when there's an age gap, mutual respect isn't just a nice to have, it's the glue that holds everything together. Attraction might draw you to someone, shared values might give you common ground, but without mutual respect, the relationship starts to feel unbalanced. Respect is about seeing the other person as a full, complex human being, not just as a role they play in your life, or a source of validation, or someone who meets your needs. It means honoring their individuality, their boundaries, and their experiences, even when they don't match your own. One of the biggest misconceptions about relationships with an age difference is that one person has all the wisdom while the other has all the energy. While life experience can give someone a broader perspective, it doesn't make their partner's thoughts or feelings less valid. Respect in this context means recognizing that both people bring something valuable to the table. Maybe one brings perspective and stability, and the other brings curiosity and freshness. The dynamic works best when both are acknowledged, rather than one being elevated and the other diminished. Respect also means allowing each other space to grow. Age gap relationships can sometimes unintentionally fall into a teacher-student dynamic, where the older partner feels like they need to guide or shape the younger partner's decision. While guidance can be valuable when it's invited, it can quickly turn into control if it's constant or unasked for. Real respect means trusting that your partner can learn from life in their own way and at their own pace, even if that means making mistakes. Boundaries are another essential piece of mutual respect. In a healthy relationship, boundaries aren't walls, they're agreements that protect both people's well-being. This could mean respecting each other's time, privacy, friendships, and emotional triggers. When boundaries are crossed repeatedly, resentment begins to take root, and once resentment sets in, attraction and affection start to fade. The challenge is that respecting boundaries requires you to listen, not just to what's said but to what's shown. Sometimes a partner won't explicitly say "I need this space," but their behavior will signal it. Respect means being attuned enough to notice and considerate enough to respond. Mutual respect also shows up in communication. It's not just about the words you choose, but the tone, the timing, and the intention behind them. When disagreements happen, and they will, it's easy to let frustration override kindness. But in moments of tension, respect is choosing not to belittle, dismiss, or mock your partner's point of view. It's the difference between arguing to win and discussing to understand. And in relationships where age or experience levels differ, this becomes even more important, because any hint of condescension can make the other person feel undervalued or talked down to. Another layer of respect is supporting each other's autonomy. Even in a deeply committed relationship, both people need a sense of independence. This doesn't mean keeping secrets or living separate lives. It means encouraging your partner to have passions, goals, and friendships that don't revolve entirely around you. This independence keeps the relationship vibrant, because when both people are growing as individuals, they have more to bring back into the partnership. Ultimately, respect is less about grand gestures and more about the daily choices you make. It's in remembering something important to your partner without being reminded. It's in giving them the benefit of the doubt when misunderstandings arise. It's in speaking to them in a way you'd be proud of, even if someone else were listening. Over time, these small acts accumulate into a deep sense of safety, a safety that lets love not just exist but flourish. At the heart of it all, the kind of relationship we truly crave isn't built on appearances, fleeting emotions, or even just shared interests. It's built on a foundation of mutual trust, genuine understanding, and respect that runs both ways. Age, background, or life stage may shape how two people meet, but it's the daily choices they make, choosing to listen, to value, to support, that determine whether love grows or withers. When both partners bring their full selves to the table, when they honor each other's individuality and nurture the connection with intention, they create something rare, a bond that's not only passionate in the moment, but strong enough to stand the test of time. In the end, real love isn't about finding someone who completes you, it's about building a life together where both of you feel whole.